Senator Perry, I was going through the committee substitute to Senate Bill 4 as it came over. I just was given an opportunity this afternoon to review it. I was reading the whole thing, and I think the section that you and Senator Taylor were having a colloquy over has to do on page 13, line 12. Number 2, where it says inquiring as to the nationality or immigration status of a victim or witness to a criminal offense if the officer has probable cause to believe the victim or witness has engaged in specific conduct. I've been looking through this, and the question that I have is, for lawful detainment, is it probable cause? What is the legal standard that has to be achieved for a law? Because that's what I'm curious about, because my concern, as I did a quick search of probable cause, it comes up in even legal definitions as being a subjective term. So could you help me understand what is the standard or the bar that needs to be met by a law enforcement officer? Because in the bill I do read here that it talks about campus police department, and so it may be police officers that may not be our city's finest. It may just be a first-year campus police officer, and I'm just curious, what is the standard that they're going to be expected to meet?
So it's the same standard as it is today, pre-SB4 and post-SB4. A lawful detainment is when an officer has stopped someone for something that they deem to be a violation of the law today. It is subjective. I'll guarantee you a lot of our debate that we've had has made it aware, fully aware, and as you say, you Google probable cause and you get different definitions. It comes down to officer training, it comes down to departmental training, it comes down to individual officer experience, but all of that plays into what is probable cause or why a lawful detainment would need to be had. So that's, you're looking for a specific. You live in the world that I live in, and that's the way it's currently applied today, and SB4 does not change how that officer detains someone today.
So lawful detainment, because I was listening to Senator Taylor, and I'm not sure anybody on this floor would disagree that if there's a criminal in a jail and we had the opportunity to get rid of a dangerous criminal, I agree, we should. That's not the issue for me. My concern is if you have someone who's driving down the street and they have a broken taillight, or they don't put on their blinker, or they roll through a stop sign, or they're maybe going 5 or 10 miles over the speed limit, those are all reasons for a lawful detainment. Is that true?
That would be true.
So I may or may not have stopped at the stop sign long enough. I get pulled over, and at this point, let's take me out of the equation, because I know my rights. I can easily explain why I'm a citizen. But let's say my mom, who's 81, who came over as an adult to be a nurse, and we've talked about Mom back in February, and she gets nervous easily, and she may not feel comfortable, may not know what to do. Obviously now she's going to probably think about carrying her passport with her, but the question is, at that point, a law enforcement officer, as I read the bill, any law enforcement officer, correct?
Law enforcement is commissioned by that jurisdiction. So if it's an officer of that jurisdiction that your mom and your hypothetical happens to be driving in, that would qualify as a commissioned peace officer.
In the school district?
In the school district, if it's campus police and they're commissioned outside that campus, that's a commissioned officer. So anybody commissioned peace officer.
Okay.
So, but
all right.
Remember,
I just see. I think I was listening to Senator Garcia talk about her concerns, and I share the same concerns. The concerns are not getting rid of dangerous criminals. We're all on board, 100%. The concerns are the people who may or may not be in fear. To some extent, people who are elderly, who feel like now they've got to be able to prove their citizenship. Maybe it's children born in this country who get dropped off by mom or dad who maybe now they know mom or dad aren't here legally, and if mom and dad run a stop sign.
So again, I don't know how many times I have to reiterate, and I tell you what disappoints me.
Go ahead.
Is all the buzzwords were hit with a predecessor senator here to the next meeting: racial profiling, Latino attacks, those kind of words. Those are inflammatory and sensitive, and they're based, and then your question is on hypothetical. And we talk about how do we calm the fear, I think invalid fear, with SB4. And it's not to have discussions of hypotheticals. It's to talk in terms of reality. SB4 today does not change a single thing that's available to an officer today, and nor will it be different tomorrow. So an officer today, through a lawful detainment, can, if he believes, inquire if it weren't for a jurisdictional policy in which he's hired under says you can't do that. And I think there's a bigger constitutional issue there as those individual officers take an oath to uphold the law of the land. But every discussion on this is very respectful, but it's time that we put the fear mongering and tactics aside. And I don't delegitimize the concerns, but those concerns exist today. We have cops that do things today that we all on this floor would find deplorable. We don't believe in racial profiling as a country, as a state, as a community, or as individuals. And the hypotheticals that you set up that is going to encourage that, with or without SB4, unfortunately, we will have a very, very, very small minority of officers, enforcement officers, commissioned peace officers, that do violate that very sacred right of our being, so to speak. But I got to say, I'm beginning to feel a little bit like, let's reiterate all the political talking points on the fear side of this equation. You know, to suggest that someone is a victim of crime is at any lesser state. Really, this bill codifies statutory protection for informants and victims of crime. It just does. First time in the history of the state, we're going to legally and legitimately tell an officer, you can't really do that unless it's in the furtherment of the benefit of that person that's informing. So I respect the fact if you want to continue the hypothetical discussion, I'll go with you a little bit longer. But at the end of the day, I trust my officers to exercise their in the times we live in, we have to put trust where the effect is. And the trust on the frontline officers being informed, experienced, and trained to apply that inquiry once a lawful detainment occurs is something that I think most people, we speak to those that have fear. I have a lot of people that tell me it's about time that everybody has the law applied to them the same. And this bill does not change what we do today, nor will it change tomorrow. It's unfortunate that we have this bill today because certain jurisdictions in this state and across this country has put law-abiding citizens in jeopardy by releasing bad people back into the community. And had they done their federal immigration law, have they applied it as it was meant to be, the intent, those people would not have been back on the streets. But I will walk through this hypothetical with you one more time. But frankly, it just adds to the non-factual substance of what SB4 does.